I want to drop into mine. Of course, I do think that anyone that's on a healing journey has had one very important key step, and that is that you've suffered pain, trauma, loss. All right? That's the first one. But it doesn't matter whether it's mine, really. It's that we all experience that. Because what that does for us is it makes us want to find wholeness in ourselves. That's the really important thing, is to find that wholeness. So that's that yearning that we have. And it's from there that we start our journey. And the place that I really had a significant event that happened to me, that I really saw the upside down, topsy-turvy world. At the same time, I saw a divine and had a divine experience. Now, I was in 7th grade at the time, and I wouldn't have even been able to say this whole event was spiritual in any way, but I knew something special was happening. I was signing up for register for my 8th grade classes, and I lived in a university town of Urbana, Illinois. So if any of your parents are educated, they assume you're going to go off to college. So even by 7th grade, I was well aware that my path would be to go to college. And so one of the important things you have to take in 8th grade is biology. And I was getting ready to write it down, and my hand stuck, and I couldn't write it. And I paused, and I said, okay, what's that about? And this inner voice that rose someplace from deep inside of me said, I am opposed to obtrusive research. And I went, what? I'm opposed to intrusive research. And I knew from all that you hear in junior high school is that 8th grade biology is the class that you get to dissect a frog. All right? And I'm sitting here going, okay, now this could block my ability to go on for further education. All right? So what am I going to do about this? And I paused. I took the moment to reflect. And I decided that I was going to sign up for biology and figure it out before class started in the fall. And so I had from that time all the way through to the first day of school to figure out what I was going to do. So on my summer, believe it or not, I would think about what I was going to do to get through my biology class without having to take this or do any dissecting. And I got closer and closer to school. I hadn't come up with a solution, didn't know what I was going to do. But then about the week before school, I decided I could at least pull on a couple things, do a few things. The first thing was I was going to wait and see what the instructor said about school, what the rules were to the classroom. Then I was going to use and then I was going to try to talk to the instructor. And if that wasn't going to work, I was going to then at least pull out my parents and see if they would help me. Now, you have to realize that my father was a biochemist. And of course, science was very much valued in our lives. But I knew one thing about my parents, and that was that they have at least allowed me to have this journey of being fairly independent in some ways. As I look back, well, I'll tell that in a minute about my canoe trip as to how they helped to support and encourage me in going solo canoeing. But in this moment, it was to say, I just want them to come to school and say that Cheryl stands strong on what she's saying here, and can you figure out something else to do? I'm not trying to get out of biology. I'm just trying to get out of biology and the rules and the curriculum that they had set, where I would have to do obtrusive or invasive research. So I said, okay, then I'd try that, and then I would figure out what else I might have to do. And I'm not sure what that would be, but I would come up with it. Well, the first day of class, I'm sitting there in Mr. Hansen's classroom. And Mr. Hansen reads everybody's name, checks everybody else, and then he gives the rules to the class. And he goes, I'm going to do something different this year. This year, you get to decide your own projects. And I sat there and went, wow, something happened. And I'm sitting in that class, and I can hear the instructor and the teacher in the classroom next door, who's also a biology instructor, and I said, and I could be in that class, and I probably would have to dissect a frog. The good news is I never did dissect a frog, never had to stand strong on my conviction at that point in time. I didn't tell anyone about this until, probably about 10 years ago is when I started telling people about that experience. Now, that was the positive thing. That was when I realized that something in the universe was working on my behalf, because I knew that I had spent a lot of time thinking about this, but I didn't really know what to do about it. And of course, I really didn't need to know what to do until the moment of decision. And in that case, I would say that I asked and I received, and my instructor got the message by allowing us to choose our projects. So I chose other projects that didn't require cutting anything open. Now, that same year, I had another teacher who in 7th grade had already taken me to task for being in the hallway early. And that was because I was visiting the principal for a specific reason with a girlfriend. But she saw me in the classroom, in the hallway, and yelled at me, and she said, "Who do you think you are, the Queen of Sheba?" And I went, I can't answer this question. And of course, obviously, no. But anyway, I realized that was not so great, so I just did what she told me, which is to get my books and get to my first class. And that's something I need to tell you. In Illinois, even in the winter, they make the kids stand outside the school until a certain time, and then they open the doors. Here, I know that they don't do that, especially in the winter, because my husband had gone down to Illinois and saw the kids all standing outside one day when I was, I think, around Thanksgiving. He goes, "What are they doing out there?" And I said, "They don't let them in school until a certain time, so you gather outside." All right, that's why I was in the school by myself with my girlfriend. All right, so then I got this woman, this instructor. Her name is Miss Ewald. She has every reason that I became an accelerated learning educator, and every reason I didn't want to become one, because that was a hard year in her civics class, or social studies class, because she gave very strong rules, like you had to participate in class, and I was a shy person. I didn't really want to raise my hand and talk all the time. It made me nervous, but I was going to do that because I wanted to get the grade. She also said that we had to cross all our I's and dot all our T's, and she had a few other rules that I don't remember, but anyway, so one of the things I'd do is I'd raise my hand, whenever I knew the answer, and I noticed that she was never calling on me. So I decided to try an experiment, which was not to raise my hand when I knew the answer, and only raise my hand when I didn't know the answer. And it worked. But I noticed that she got very upset when I would be able to answer the question. So obviously there was some tension in the class, in this class for me. And she would always do pop quizzes, so I was always trying to be ready for the class. And one day she passed, we had a test, and the next day she passed it back to us with all of it graded. And I had 5 points off my test. And she went through all the questions and all the answers, and I had everything right. And I had 5 points off. So I have to admit, I was a little my ego got the best of me. I got up and I kind of handed her the paper and I said, "Where's the five points off?" And I'm standing there looking at the class, and she's right here next to me. And I noticed her looking through it, reading it, and I'm seeing that she's getting a little more tense. And I then saw her go, and I went, "Oh, she got me. I don't know what she got me on." And she flippantly, about as flippant as I probably was, handed the paper back to me and said, you didn't dot the I in your name." And as I took it back, I walked back to my chair, and I sat down and I said, now that was my signature. And she really doesn't have the right to mess with my signature and who I am. But I get that she has the rules of this class, and this is going to be just a matter of sliding through the class, doing everything I can to get out. Well, what I didn't realize until much later in that is that those two situations were juxtapositioned. There was this powerful experience that I believe was divine intervention in a way, for allowing me to really hold to my heart the truth of who I am, which is I did not want to do intrusive type research. It was okay for my father. I think it's important to many things, but it's just not my path. And then this situation where I had an instructor who was really trying to break me down, and I think try to take the life out of who I was as an individual. So I had to hold on to that magic of that experience in Mr. Hansen's classroom. Now let's fast forward because that was where I would say my true healing journey started, where I started walking the spiritual path. Because at that point, I had seen that. I saw other kinds of magical experiences, but this one was really a special one because I realized something had come to me. Now, in my early 20s in college, of course, I would do those late night discussions and, about the meaning of life and come up with all these answers or no answers at all or whatever. And soon in my college years, I decided I had to step back away from my traditional religion, which was being a Methodist. We were very active as a family. And it worked very well. But then it stopped working when I started having some unusual experiences. Actually, I had one at 14 and I never bothered to tell anyone. I was in the four corners of the states, what is that, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, thank you, right, in the four corners. I didn't know I was going to tell this story, and now I'm telling it. Thank you, I need participation once in a while, outside help. And we were there traveling as a family, and we were standing in the cliff dwellings. And the ranger was talking about the cliff dwellings and was talking about this one big round building that they had created that had broken down to where it was just the ring around it. And they said it had only been off by 3 or 4 inches from a perfect 360 degrees, and that they did not know how they made it. And my hands started to go up like this to say, but I know. How do I know something like that? And I caught myself being in a different body suddenly and catching an awareness around the sounds and seeing the men working on this tower that they had built, this round building. And I went, how could I know that? And then I walked around. I separated from the tour when we were able to do that and walked around up in the different areas and listened and heard, and I could hear things that I weren't there. I could see my brother and my sister and my parents and the rest of the tour, but I wasn't there. I was back in that place when it was something different. Now, I can take a couple different stands on those. I can say that that was a reincarnation experience, or I can say that I just tapped into what it would be like to be living at that time, because I believe I have done that. I have walked onto land someplace and been able to say that I sensed something from that land without really knowing anything about the land beforehand and how it feels and how people that live on that land feel compelled to be and to do and act in a certain way. So then I had another one of those in college, and that's when I decided that those experiences were nothing that my traditional religious experience had allowed me. So I decided I needed to step back and take a different path. And I did for a while. I decided being an agnostic was a good place. Then I tried out being an atheist because I thought that might be a good place. Now that one was a high pressure place as far as I was concerned, because I realized that if there was no help out there in the universe and we're just out here on this earthly planet just spinning around doing whatever we want, that there's a lot of responsibility to me to make this a better place all by myself or with all my other fellow humans or whatever, and that was a lot of effort, and that I didn't think that I was capable of that all by myself. So then I decided, well, at least I'll go back to my position of agnostic to find out whether I liked that position as an atheist. I never did like it, so I returned back out of it and then quickly entered into another area of my spiritual journey, which is to say that I am on this path where I want to see the excitement of life and to feel all of the emotional aspects of life. I think that's the biggest challenge, is that we try to prevent some of that, And of course, oftentimes when we try to prevent it is when it comes at us harder and harder and harder and stronger until it takes us to our knees, because then we start to listen, all right? Well, I want to fast forward to my canoe trip, which actually, no, wait. I want to go to another place where one day I also asked and received again rather suddenly, and that was one spring before, this must have been more than 20 years ago. I know it was more than 20 years, probably 25 years ago. I was sitting and watching TV with my husband of that time, and I was watching the old movie of Jesus of Nazareth on TV, and there is something in the moment when I believe it was Charles Charlton Heston, get the name out right, thank you, was playing Christ, and he laid his hands on somebody. And I saw in that moment how that laying of the hands really helped that person, that there was some kind of energy exchange. Something was taking place there. It was so beautiful, that scene, as far as I was concerned. And I remember looking at my hands and saying,